Good morning, good afternoon or good evening, wherever in the world you might be watching. My name is Jeff Hudson and I'll be your instructor. This course is designed to enable you to pass a basic Excel test on which you will be examined when applying for a position with a prospective employer or maybe via an employment agency. You can be sure that in the majority of cases you'll be required to demonstrate your Excel skills. You'll also find this course useful when you are now working from home and need to brush up on your Excel knowledge and abilities. We can check off the tasks as we perform them, so let's start the course. Our first task is to use the border command, which I find in the font group, and when I hover my mouse here it says border. So we want to place a border around E7 to G12. Now here I invoke the golden rule of all computing, that is select then do. And I can select in one of two ways. I can either drag through the data, or I can click on the first cell, hold down the shift key and click on the last cell. Either way will work. Having selected the data, I now go to the border command in the font group, click the drop arrow and I say outside borders. And when I click on outside borders and click away, that is exactly what I see. Our second task is to format the data as currency. Again, I need to select the data, and here in the number group I see a drop arrow next to general, and when I click on the drop arrow I can choose currency. And what Excel does, it puts a dollar sign before the numbers and 2 decimal points after the numbers. If you don't want the decimal points, then again in the number group you'll see here, if you hover your mouse over this button, it says decrease decimal, and each time I click the button it will decrease the decimal points by 1. So let's click a second time to remove the decimal points. Now let's put a tick in format data as currency. Our next task is to wrap the text in D14 and H6. When I look at D14, I see that the text has overflowed into the next cell to the right. Similarly, in H6, I see that there is too much text in that cell, so I don't see all of the text. Now what I'm going to do here is to invoke another little trick by clicking on D14 and hold down the Control key and click in H6. And I do that to save time, because I can perform the same action at the same time on both cells. The Control key enables me to select non-adjacent cells. So to wrap the text in the alignment group, I see there is a command called wrap text. I click on wrap text and that is exactly what Excel does. So let's click away to see, and there is our result. So we can put a tick in our third task. Our next task is to use a formula to calculate total costs. I see there is a total cost cell here and there's one down here. Now, using a formula is one of the most important parts of Excel. Excel's primary reason for being is to enable me to manipulate numbers. I need to be aware of the editing group when I see the auto sum button. If I click the drop arrow next to the auto sum button, I see that there are various arithmetical situations that are available to me. We're going to use the sum function in this particular case. Incidentally, when I use the word function, A function is simply a pre-written formula. So what I'm going to do is click in the total cost for the apples. And when I click the drop arrow next to auto sum and choose the sum function, Excel looks to the left and it says, are these the numbers that you wish to add? It looks to the left because there are no numbers above. So when I'm happy with its guess, I press the enter key. And I see that that is the total cost, $642. If I click back on that cell, I see in the bottom right hand corner of the cell there's a little black square, and when I point my mouse carefully at that little black square, the cursor changes to a crosshair, which means that if I hold the left mouse button down, I can drag down and copy the formula down to those cells. Similarly, total cost by month. I want to add up the total costs for January, February and March. So again, I go to the drop arrow next to auto sum, click on the sum button and press the enter key. Yes, it's added the numbers for me, and you'll notice that this time it looked up the column because there were numbers above the cell in which I inserted the formula. So let's click on that cell again, point my mouse carefully at the little black autofill button and drag across through the other 2 months, and Excel add those months for me. So that's how we use the sum function. Our next task is to use a formula to calculate average costs. Now let's watch carefully what Excel does, because if I click in the average cost cell, I want to see the average costs for the apples and the rest of the fruits. I go to the drop arrow for auto sum and click average, and Excel looks to the left because there are no numbers above. However, this time it has guessed incorrectly because it has included the total cost in the average. So what we need to do is to override its guess by dragging through the cells that we want the average of, press the enter key, go back to the cell and autofill down. And there are the average costs for the other fruits. So bear in mind that sometimes Excel guesses incorrectly at the cells that I wish to deal with. So you need to carefully check each time you press enter after inserting a formula. We can now place a tick in the formula checkboxes, and our next task in this part is to change the alignment in column D to right and save the file. At the moment I see the text in column D is left aligned. So what I'm going to do is click on the column heading for column D, which selects the entire column. In the alignment group, I see that there is a button called Align Right, and if I click on that button, then Excel will align the text to the right. Now we're going to save the file, and the quickest way to do this is to hold down the Control key and press S, because Control S will save any changes that you have made to the file. You may need to just check with your examiner as to using Control S, because they may have other situations where you might need to change where the file is saved to. They will guide you through that. So we can place a tick in that task, and we now see that we can move on to part 2.